Welcome to the Inflow Podcast. I am your host, Michelle Bosch. I see a gaping hole across society that focuses on the outer work and forgets about the inner work, when what we really need is to bridge the gap between prosperity and spirituality to live a life in flow, with inflows of light, inflows of cash, inflows of creativity, inflows of grace in our lives. Each week, join me for powerful messages and interviews that will leave you inspired and ready to step into flow in your higher work. So now, let's go. Welcome to the Inflow Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Bosch. I am so excited to be here today with a guest that is, blowing me away. With her marketing genius and just her marketing expertise. And as real estate investors, especially in the land flipping side, we don't have a whole lot of competition, but there are certain markets that are, a little bit more, I would say, I don't know if the word is saturated, but they're more popular than others. And I came across this amazing woman. Her name is Nikki Nash. Welcome, Nikki, to the Inflow Podcast. I want to give our audience a little bit of about you. So I just want you all to know Nikki is a Hay House author. She's a motivational speaker, founder of Market Your Genius. That's actually a forthcoming book coming up right now. It's going to be released, I think, in 2021. So super excited about that. She has a training and development community on a mission to equip entrepreneurs with the tools and resources they need, to share and profit from their message. And what I was really impressed by Nikki is she's been a marketing genius. You figured out that this is your genius at a very young age, as in like she's been part of corporate America. And by age 26, she had already made six figures. She was a senior marketing manager at Intel Corporation. She won marketing excellence awards, brand management MBA. I mean, she at Coca-Cola, she's like the real deal when it comes to marketing and so on. And I am just so excited to have you here. So welcome again, Nikki. I'm very blessed that, our paths crossed just a few weeks back.
Yes. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to speak with you again. I love our chats. So this is a real gift for me.
And just so you all know how I met Nikki I was part of a panel of other female entrepreneurs that were raising money for a charity, fundraiser for, to help empower women. It was a scholarship for women. And, there were three other amazing women there that I absolutely love with all my heart as well. And Nikki was, she gave us an opportunity to share our message and be part of that. And so I'm very thankful for that. So with that, Nikki, I always start my interviews because at the end of the day, we are in entrepreneurship, we are in real estate, investing, flipping, trying to make money. And with money comes not just that it's a legal form of exchange, but there's a lot of emotional ties that come with money. And so I always like to ask my guests, how you grew up with, around money, and what did it mean to you as you were growing up, and how did that play a role in ultimately, for example, your stellar, resume and curriculum and career. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And I love this question because it's one of those things where when you're going through life, unless you grew up with somebody who was like a mindset coach or talked to you about money mindset, you don't realize that you're developing these beliefs about money. And so I grew up, and both my parents are physicians. They're both doctors. And we grew up where there was a lot of old money, but we were what was considered new money. So we didn't have like this long legacy of having wealth. And so when I was growing up, I just believed that for me to make money and for me to have wealth and abundance, I had to work really hard because my parents worked really hard. Mm-hmm. And that the only people that didn't have to work really hard were people with old money. Like that was the belief system that I kind of developed myself or made those conclusions on my own. And so when I was graduating college, I got jobs because I had to work really hard. And then I felt like I was working really hard and that maybe I worked in advertising. So my first jobs were at an ad agency. And historically, at ad agencies, you get paid very little compared to probably other people. At the beginning, you work a lot of hours, but it eventually like catches up if you stay in advertising for long periods of time. But I didn't want to do that. So I spoke to a lot of my clients. I worked on the Kraft Foods account. And I was managing like million, and I'm like 22 years old, managing like $2-3 million of somebody else's ad money. Like it's kind of crazy. And I spoke to a lot of my clients and they said, if you want to come to a company like Kraft or come client side, the only real avenues at this point are to go back to school and get your MBA and then get a job at a company that way, or work your way up advertising until you're so high up that it's an easier like parallel transition over to the client side. And so that's how I ended up making six figures at a very young age, is that I went back to school. I interned at Coca-Cola. My career to that point, I had been working on big brands. I worked at on the Kraft Foods account. I worked at In Style magazine. I worked at Travel and Leisure magazine. So I was always looking like, what is going to be a great brand package from a career perspective, so that when I negotiate, and I've always worked hard at the companies and had great references, but so that when I negotiate, I have something to come from that. So by the time I was 26, I was graduating with my MBA, and I negotiated the heck out of my salary. I got a bunch of offers and I was like, no, I was like, I will not take less than six figures to make up for the dirt I was paid for the first like 3 or 4 years of my career. So that's that.
Yeah. So you knew your worth, and you were willing to, like you said, negotiate the heck out of it. In what you did is you basically build an asset of experiences with amazing brands and so on and so forth. And you use that basically as a way to say, okay, this is what I'm worth. I am not worth less than this. So then you do get, the new job or the promotion. And then, but at some point you must have decided then to leave corporate America and start your own business. So how does that, like, what was happening in your head? Because we have a ton of, for example, real estate investors that have been professionals, have been, dentists, lawyers, doctors. We actually have quite a bit of dentists that, and I can understand and relate that you don't want to be 65 and, looking into people's mouths and so on and so forth. But I mean, those are very well established and very well professions. And you were in a situation where you were in a very well-established position, and yet you have in your mind, the bug of entrepreneurship. And so how do you make or reconcile and make a decision to, okay, I'm going to let go of everything that I've known, and I'm going to go and do my own thing?
Yeah, I think it started a little bit early, actually, because when I had my very, very first job, I wanted to quit after like 6 months. I actually did quit after 6 months, my very, very, very first job. And I remember speaking to my father and saying, Dad, I want a job where I feel like I'm making a contribution to the world the way I want to. And my dad's kind of response was, you can make a contribution to the world outside of work. It doesn't have to come from your job. And I'm like, that's easy for you to say, you're a freaking doctor, but whatever. I'm like, you literally are like saving people. And I'm, at that time I was doing ad sales. Was my very, very first job. I'm like, I'm selling small ad space in the back of a publication. Like, this is not really what I want to be doing. And I think when I kept looking for new jobs throughout my life, I was looking for the job where I felt like I'm going to be making a big difference. I'm going to be doing something where I'm incredibly happy. And so when I left my corporate job, it wasn't so much that I didn't like my team or I didn't like the people or that I hated my job at that point. It was more of, I feel like I should be doing something that really makes me feel like I'm living my life's purpose. And at the time, right before I turned 30, my aunt was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And that's how my maternal grandmother died. And this was my mom's sister. And so we were like, my mom's like, let's get somebody who does genetics. I was like, I don't want to say genealogist and then it'll be like the wrong thing. Clearly I am not a doctor or pay attention to any of that stuff. But, we had to get her genes looked at, and we found out that the BRCA2 gene mutation ran in our family. And so what that means is that you're more likely to get ovarian cancer. And so if you remember I think it was 2016 or somewhere around there, or maybe earlier, Angelina Jolie wrote an article for the New York Times about her decision to have preventative surgery. And that's because BRCA1 ran in her family, which is primarily you see breast cancer with those that have the BRCA1 mutation. And then for BRCA2, it's ovarian cancer. And so we found out my aunt had the gene, my mom had to get tested, my mom had the gene, which meant my sister and I were going to have to get tested. And so it was just like this period of time where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I am not magically, wildly happy with my job. Like, I wasn't miserable by any means at that time, but I wasn't wildly in love with it. I wanted to make a difference. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to save money. I'm going to stay at my job maybe 6 more months. And then I picked a date when I was quitting. So I knew in my head I was quitting, even though I didn't tell anybody at the time. And I'm going to start my own business. And so between that time, I found out that my sister and I did not have the gene mutation. So neither of us were at risk for ovarian cancer, or at like a disproportionate risk. Like, we still are probably the average population risk, but it won't be that we have the gene and mutation. And I decided to leave that job. And I left my job at Intel. I was living on the West Coast. I moved back east. I took a 2-week vacation in Mexico with my family. And the first week of vacation was amazing. And the second week of vacation, I was freaking out because I didn't know if I could do it. I'm like, I don't know. I've never built a business. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I ended up looking for jobs the whole second week of vacation. And this is all mindset stuff, guys. Like, I convinced myself that if I got a job at a startup.
Exactly. Your mind is like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was like, if I get a job at a startup, I'm going to learn how to build a business. And so I got a job as head of marketing at a tech startup. And what I learned is that nobody knows what the heck they're doing. And you just kind of figure it out along the way. And I'm being like overly melodramatic with nobody knows what the heck they're doing. But it's not like there's some sort of special roadmap that says, if you do these things, you are guaranteed success down to like the time and date and minute. Like, there's nothing that specific. It's a lot of trial and error. And yes, there are frameworks and processes and things you can follow, but nobody's going to give you the minute by minute playbook.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember when we started, looking into real estate, we looked into flipping houses, and then we're like, oh my gosh, that is way too complicated. As immigrants into this country, there was a lot of moving pieces. It's not that we had bad credit. We just had no credit. We didn't know anything about how to estimate repairs. And we build in Honduras for hurricanes, and Germany, my husband's from Germany. They built for, extreme cold weather conditions. And we were living in Phoenix, Arizona, where, construction wise, everything was so different. And we're like, okay, and we stumbled into a piece of land and we made some money, and we were like, okay, and we went at it, but it was those things where there's a little bit of intuition first deal, but then really not knowing exactly how to scale in the beginning, and you just having a vision for, okay, what if I could do X amount of deals, in a month, then that could probably, be reasonable to go ahead and offset, the income that I'm making in corporate America. A matter of throwing kind of like, I'm oversimplifying, spaghetti on the wall and seeing what stick. But what I'm trying to say is that you, in startup or in entrepreneurship or in investing, you can't just wait for everything to be perfect. That there are certain risks that you're going to have to make, and that are going to be part of your decision making, and then you got to go and get out to marketplace anyways, and lay it out there and see how the market responds, And based on that, you fine tune, or iterate and reiterate, you know what I mean? Versus trying to have an entire model. We didn't have the entire A to Z figured out. We bought the piece of land, and once we bought it, we're like, oh my goodness, we have to sell it. How are we going to sell it? You know what I mean? So I totally get what you're saying with it is in a way in the startup world, there is a lot of you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Our audience, I think when they first find out about us, that's a lot of the things that are going up in their head. And then when we say, well, no, we've already laid out a process, we've done all the failing for you, we call it the failures are the accelerated learnings for you, and so on and so forth. But still, you go out there, the economy changes, economic conditions change. And with that, it doesn't mean that land flipping will not work, but that you're going to have to innovate. You're going to have to be creative. If there's more people actually flipping in a specific market, you're going to have to differentiate yourself, amongst, those other people that might be soliciting the same sellers to buy land, or soliciting the same pool of buyers, to sell the land. So in an example like that, what are some things that, if you're an investor, and I know this is completely out of your ballgame because it's a completely different industry, but I'm thinking that there's timeless marketing principles when it comes to differentiating yourself in the marketplace, so that you can become the logical option for either a seller or a buyer of a piece of land. What are some of those things that to consider?
Yeah, and one of the first things I would say is to anybody who's flipping real estate, flipping land, investing in real estate, whatever it is, buying a house, it doesn't matter, doing traditional real estate. But what I always tell people is that most of marketing is it's like a way of building relationships. And so when you think about how you can differentiate yourself, a lot of times I just say, well, why do the people who invest with you, or who, work with you, or whatever it is, what is it about you that has them choose you over somebody else in the first place? Because when you can start to better understand why somebody's choosing you over somebody else, then you can figure out what you can market and what you can almost amplify in the world. And this is especially important when people are selling essentially themselves as a brand. I think about when I first...
Which you are selling yourself, because let me tell you, people are doing business with us and deciding to buy land from us or sell us their land, not just because of the land itself, but because of the level of trust that they feel in my ability to close and perform, you know what I mean, when I'm buying, and on my ability to also bring to them a good piece of land as well when I'm selling. So, and either way, you're right. It's you. It's the person behind the name of the company or the LLC that is acting as a acquisition or disposition of real estate, company. The one that is, it's a human behind it after all.
100%. And you brought up a really important word, which is trust, because at the end of the day, your job in quote unquote marketing yourself or marketing your business is to give people enough information to allow them to choose to work with you or not. And so that's the fundamental goal of marketing, is to give people the information, the build that trust, whatever it is that they need, so that they can make a decision. And so when you are putting yourself out there, it's very much, okay, what is it about me? Is it your knowledge, like your knowledgeability? Do you have an area of expertise? Is it your personality? Is it the fact that you're a real talker and a no BS type of person? Like, what is it about you that attracts people to you? And I remember when I very first started, I kept hearing, and I still hear it today, but it was the first time I must have been paying attention to anybody using this word. But people would just say to me, I really like your energy. I really like your energy. You have great energy. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? And how the heck can I market that? Like, what is that? But I just kind of sat with it. And I'm like, okay, one of the reasons why people choose to work with me or choose to buy our products or services is because of like, it's something that's almost indescribable. It's an energy thing, but I can show people the energy through the way that I market. And so choosing to do videos or choosing to do podcasts or choosing to do things where people can hear me, see me, like get a sense of who I am and meet in person when, that was more of a thing.
That is actually a good pointer right there, because we have actually quite a few very successful, students in our coaching that are using YouTube videos to basically come up with a collage of the land. But it's not just the story that they're painting, in that land that they're showing, but it's also the human element of somebody hearing their voice and so on and so forth. And what does that transmit to someone else? So I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And video is so powerful because, especially in this virtual world, people like our brains can't really tell the difference between, hey, I've never actually met you in person versus, oh, I have met you in person when you see them on video, especially on a consistent basis. And I remember there was a time I was at like a bar or it was like a club thing. And I was in my like 20s and I was walking towards this guy because I sweared to the universe or God or whomever that I knew this person. Like, I know this person. I can't remember why I know this person, but I'm going to go say hi because I clearly know this person. And I'm walking and I'm walking and I'm almost at the person. And then I realized that they are a reality TV star and I don't know the person. And then I was like, I shall continue to the bathroom. I'm going to pretend I was going to the bathroom. I'm going to go to the bathroom because I almost just embarrassed myself by saying, hey, how are you? How do we know each other again? Only to realize that we didn't know each other. But that's the power of video, is that you see someone, you get used to their mannerisms, you feel like you know them. And before you know it, you're thinking that you know the person.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so now you work with companies, in small businesses or in whatever capacity, and in helping them market their genius, which for me, and I'm going to take the conversation now in a different direction. When I hear market your genius, I'm like, okay, what am I really amazing at? Not just from the point of view of an individual, but also as a company. And how can I basically use that in my marketing to become a lighthouse and be able to magnetize people, to want to do business with me? And so can you speak a little bit about that, which is in part like what you said, what was your X factor, people telling you, your energy, but what are other things that you've helped your clients with, or or do they come with you to you already knowing what their genius is, or do you help uncover what those possible things be?
Yeah.
What are some of the common things that that you see out there?
So I think one of the biggest things that I see from people is they may get that they're great at what they do, and they may even understand that people need what they have. But the gap is usually, what is the reality of the person working with me like what are their pain points? What are they struggling with? What are they dealing with? Why are they choosing to make this investment or to buy this property or why are they wanting what it is that you offer in the first place? And really understanding their pain point, and then being able to package their magic in such a way that it's an easy, no-brainer solution for that person. And so when you think of it, like a simple solution is, or a simple example could be something along the lines of, somebody saying, hey, I really want to be known as an expert in my industry. I know that I need something that can help me position myself as an expert so that I can share my philosophy, share who I am, share my case studies, share all of that to a person, and that they can easily go, oh my goodness, I want to work with this person. And then if I am somebody who helps people write books, maybe my solution is, hey, I know tons of people who are an expert in their field and are looking for a way to position themselves as an expert. And they want to write a book, or they want to have a book, but they believe that writing a book is hard, or they're not sure if they can do it, or they don't believe they have the time, or they don't know what the steps are. And I help you do that in a simple, easy process. And I'm a ghostwriter or whatever it is, it's just like somebody had a problem and I really understand their problem. And now I'm sharing them my solution in such a way that it's like 3 to 5 simple steps or something, like a framework or a solution that's super easy to understand so that people can go, yes, this can solve my problem. And so I always encourage people to think about, where is their, person at, like their ideal person that they would love to do business with over and over and over again. What are they dealing with? What are they struggling with? Are they somebody who really wants to, I'm making this up, has been scouring the universe for the perfect place to build a high-rise apartment building? I'm making this up, but like, if you are the person that always looks for the best land for high-rise apartment buildings, then you want to find the people that want to own high-rise apartment buildings or build high-rise apartment buildings so that you can partner with them. Like, hey, I have the land, you have the desire to build, let's get together. Or hey, I have information, you can help me write a book, or you have the book knowledge, let's come together. And so I think for you, as the person who understands where the other, like your ideal person is at, it's literally sitting down. And I'm a big fan of Post-its. Like, I use Post-its for everything. And I just sit down with a Post-it. And what I do with my clients is I have them write down, what are all of the things that the person who you're going to build that relationship with, that you're going to work with, that's going to hire you or whatever, write down all of the things on a different Post-it that they need to know, believe, have in order to say, yes, working with you is a no-brainer. Like, what are the things they need to know? What are the things they need to believe? What are the things they already need to have in place? And like, write all of that down. If it's information that they need to get to, where they want to be, what are all the pieces of information that they need but don't have? And I have them write them all on Post-its. And then I go, okay, now let's start grouping these together. And when you group it together, then you can start going, oh, okay, well, this is how I can simply explain what I do, because all of this over here is they just don't know how, maybe they don't have the information on flooding.
Yeah.
Flooding.
Yeah.
You can see I purchased a lot of real estate in my life.
I totally get what you're saying. This is so, Nikki, I know that it's a completely different industry, you know what I mean? But this is exactly what we do. So we specialize in 3 types of land: path of growth, which means just 45 minutes outside of the cities. We specialize also in infill lots, which are inside of the city, but also in recreational land. The buyer of each of those 3 types of land is a completely different buyer. Yeah. And so we have basically marketing kit descriptions for, does the property fall into one of those 3 buckets? And if it falls into this bucket, we understand that the pain points of somebody, looking for recreational land is that they're not going to want 100. The whole point of being out in the boonies 2 hours away from a major city is to have a big piece of land, so that they're going to be able to have, access to hunting, access to, recreational things like lakes or hiking or fishing and so on and so forth. And so you understand not just the pain point that they might have, that whether, if they have a family that they don't want to drive more than 2 hours, but you also understand, what are some things that are attractive to them, so that you can make sure that in your marketing brochure for that particular type of property, that you address all of those things. And hey, and by the way, did you know that, the water tables, if you wanted to dig a well, are only X amount of feet, in order to dig, or Al, the water guy, can deliver water to you if it's an area where there's no water. We have areas like that here in Northern Arizona, because I live in the desert. You're now Northeast. But so basically it's understanding basically what you're saying, the pain points that I'm going to be addressing with each type of property. And therefore it needs to reflect in my listing of my property, and address those pain points and overcome objections before they even come up. When it comes to money, we usually use seller financing, where they put a down payment and then they can pay the rest of monthly payments. So part of the things that have to do with the pain point of money, we address it usually with, we offer, financing, we offer, the opportunity for you to do it without us doing a credit check, and so on and so forth. And by the way, hey, this is a list of all the people that have done business with me, because I know you mentioned, testimonials, and testimonials are so important for people to, for you to basically help them make that no-brainer decision of wanting to open their wallet to buy a piece of land, from you. So it all applies. So like, I know that you're describing it more from the point of view of creating, the package, or the brand for if it was a personal brand, but it applies in our world as well. And so that's something that I would recommend, the listeners, is that if they do not have a little marketing bullet points, for each of the type of land that you have in inventory or that you're targeting to buy, that you create something, and it can be as simple as putting in, like you said, Nikki, on stickies, okay, these are all the pain points that I'm going to address, in my listing, for a 30-acre parcel in a recreational area, versus infill lot, where it's going to be more relating to what can I build, what is it zoned for, because it's inside of the city, you know what I mean? Your buyer is going to have different pain points. So
absolutely.
And that allows them to already start creating a relationship with you, because you are, like you said, addressing all the possible things that are going to come up in their head, and that you can overcome either through marketing or simply by actually hearing your voice, having a conversation with them, which sales conversation. And that's the whole point at the end of the day. Marketing needs to lead us into a sales conversation that feels pretty organic and pretty natural.
Absolutely. And when marketing is done right, it makes it so it's like, I don't know how many sports fans we've got here, but it's almost like, if you're playing basketball, you're just like throwing the ball to the hoop and maybe it didn't go in, but somebody's right there and all they have to do is dunk it in, or like, it's just like a really simple, oh, okay, you assisted them in the best way possible. And for me, my area of expertise is marketing, but everything that I teach people can be used regardless of the industry. Like I'm working with an esthetician who does threading and is helping other people build threading businesses. I know Jack about threading your eyebrows. Like, I don't know anything. And I'm sitting there with her, like, mapping out her threading content. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, let me ask, because it's just about getting curious. I'm like, let me ask you a bunch of questions about what their pain points are. Let's figure it out together. And then from there, we can figure out the best way to do it. Because at the end of the day, you're asking yourself, okay, what is the information, or what is the information or the new beliefs that somebody needs to have in order to make it like the best sales conversation ever, to make it as easy as possible. And typically you can do a lot of that kind of warming up and relationship building with content. Because if you have something where people are getting to know you, like you have a podcast, people are getting to know you on a consistent basis, so you have that sort of weekly show, you have, snippets of content where people can see you maybe more frequently in different places. You can have social proof or testimonials or somebody else saying, hey, what you're doing is, or what they've done for me is amazing, or I worked with this person, it was great, or I got this land and this person made it so easy for me to build that I didn't have to, deal with crazy regulations or anything like that. They took everything I could humanly possibly need into consideration. When you have, all of that together, and then, you throw in, maybe you've been featured in the news, or you've been featured in a local magazine or something like that. When you have all of those different pieces of content and you know how to use them to help somebody make a better decision, then you're like gold, you're golden. And it's really just sitting down and taking the time to intentionally think, what are the things that people need in order to be a yes for me? And so typically what I tell people is that if you have like some combination of these 6 pieces of content, you maybe need all of them, maybe not, depending on your industry, but we talk about it. But you usually need some sort of hook content, which will give them the ability to say, yes, I want to give you my contact information. So that could be, your hook content could be as simple as like an actual lead magnet or a PDF or a checklist or something, or it could be like, hey,
something
here's
on it. What are the top mistakes to avoid when buying land?
Exactly.
I mean?
Like it could be
that.
something as simple as that, like give me your email address, I'll give you this checklist or something along those lines. Or sometimes I'm just like, oh, well, I did this video and it was really good. So I will give you the video and I'll email it to you. Just give me your email address. Like, you can keep it super simple. And you can even sometimes, I don't know if I've used business cards in forever, but if you are in an industry that still uses business cards, you can even just put a link to something on your business card so that they sign up for it, because you know that most people take business cards and forget to do something with it, right? So you can do some sort of hook content. I encourage people, if it makes sense for them, to have some sort of weekly show where people can hear from you on a consistent basis. And it's something like this. It could be a podcast. It could be a 2-minute YouTube video. It could be anything, but just something that they know you're going to consistently put something out. And if they want to hear from you, maybe it's the top 10 questions, and every week you just answer a question that somebody's going to have about buying land or about building or something along those lines.
And we use this, and I know we teach a lot, our students to basically, as part of building a buyer's list, is to actually get people's emails and educate and nurture on the areas and in the markets in which you have land and anything that has to do with a land purchase. You know what I mean? And so if they do not have quite exactly what you want in the moment, you nurture these relationships through a weekly email, or whatever, such that whenever you have a feature property or you have a promotion where you decide to like sell the farm and, 10% off on all cash sales, that people have had a time to build some sort of relationship with you, and they're much more willing to open their wallet if you do have a promotion like that coming up. You know what I mean? Like a Black Friday special, where I'm giving away our property with just, I'm just giving an example, $500 down versus my typical $2,000 down because it's Black Friday. You know what I mean? But people need to not just see the deal, the monetary deal. They want to have some kind of a relationship with you prior. So having a way to stay in contact with them, through email or through or videos on your website, like you said, or even a podcast. I haven't even considered about building a podcast just for my land buyers. So that is a good one, Nikki.
Yeah. And it's just something, and again, this is where kind of knowing how you best come across is important, because, for example, if you know that you come across better on video than you do email, then email a video, use BombBomb or Buongiorno or something where you can have the video literally inside of the email that you send to your clients and customers, and maybe just have a little bit of text that recaps the video or something, where if somebody wants to read it, they can, but it's just a short transcription of whatever it is you just said. And so you can do things like that. You can do a podcast where it says, hey, here's the link if you want to listen. Here's what the podcast talks about. Something where you're, to your point, continuing that relationship, but knowing, hey, if you are somebody who does better being in somebody's ear, or like a podcast or being seen on video, then you do those things, but still using email or social media or something to help people drive traffic to that piece of content. So I really encourage people to have hey, how can I get people's contact information so I build my list? How can I nurture that with some form of weekly content? How can I even drive more people to my weekly content? I call it micro content, but if you can do, if Instagram's maybe your jam, every time you post a piece of land, remind people, hey, by the way, if you want to get these listings or this information straight to your inbox, sign up for my newsletter. Keep it simple. And then if you can throw in, testimonials, or somebody sends you a text. These are simple things. If somebody sends you a text or an email raving about the land you just sold them, then scratch out their name and screenshot it, scratch out their name or any identifying information and say, hey guys, I just helped this person. I love it when I get these emails. I would love to help you. Or who else needs help or something. Keep it simple, but continue to position yourself as an expert, continue to build your brand, continue to build those relationships. And you'll know this, sometimes it takes somebody 5 minutes to say, yes, I want to buy land from you. And sometimes it takes them 5 years. But at the end of the day, if you're still building those relationships and if you're consistent, then they're going to buy from you. If they are a right fit, if they resonate with you, it's just a matter of time before they say, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what are from a marketing standpoint, and I know we've discussed about, quite a bit already, but what are you say 3 things that you would like to leave, the listeners with? What are 3 pieces of advice for a woman starting out from a marketing standpoint that you'd want to leave them with?
If I could leave you with anything, it's to, one, remember that marketing is just building relationships. And I think that too often people perceive marketing as, I have to be on every social media platform, I have to do all these emails, it's so much work, I can't do it. But it's just building relationships. So if you just treat everybody like somebody in your life that you care about, then you'll be fine. Like
be of service actually for your buyer and your seller. Yeah. What a novel concept.
But it's just like, it's because there's so much content out there about like, do this, do that, do this. It could be so easy to forget the simple thing that you're just building relationships and you don't need to be on every social media platform or everything. That's my second thing. Like if you want to be on social media, choose one platform. And then my third thing is be consistent. So build relationships, choose one place to build those relationships and do it consistently. And if you do those three things and you keep it really simple, you can move really far. I tell people all the time, like, I don't care if you just create a Facebook group, tell people to join the Facebook group, and then you show up in that Facebook group consistently every day, then you're fine. Keep it simple.
I love it. Now, I always ask all of my guests, how do they get in flow? How do you find flow either in the daily or for big decisions in your life?
Yeah, so I have discovered for myself that I do really well being in nature. So there's literally right behind. I live in the suburbs, so it's all woods behind me. Talk about like land. There's all land behind me, and nobody can build. It's restricted land, so it's beautiful. And what's back there are a lot of rivers and like streams and all sorts of stuff. So I just go for walks. There's trails. So I just do trail runs or trail walks, or I clear my head at the gym, but I think really being in nature does me good. So that's where I really get in flow. When I consistently am in nature, I'm like, oh my gosh, life is so great. Life is so easy. And like at the beginning of COVID, everybody was freaking out, but I had more time to walk in nature. And I'm like, I'm so chill. Everything's great. People are like, what's wrong with you?
Makes sense. Yeah.
We
are right next to the mountain preserve, and we had more time to go, walks with my mother, actually, which was actually, helping our relationship, our mother-daughter relationship. So yeah, I feel the same way you do. So if anyone wanted to learn more about what you do with Market Your Genius, or is interested in all things marketing, where can someone get a hold of you, Nikki?
Yeah, the easiest thing would be to go to freemarketingbootcamp.com. So it's just like freemarketingbootcamp.com all together. Keep it all lowercase. And that will just take you to a place where you can sign up for a free marketing bootcamp, hence the title of the URL, that I do consistently throughout the year. And it's literally just, I have a framework to help people build those relationships online in whatever it is that they do. And so I teach the framework over a course of 5 days. And then I also share with people how they can work with me even further or get even more. I also have a podcast called Market Your Genius. So that would be the other place. It's like, go to freemarketingbootcamp.com or tune into the podcast, Market Your Genius, and you'll get me consistently sharing content.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki. It was such a pleasure having you on Inflow today. And, I look forward to continuing our relationship. I'm like taking notes. I'm like, yeah, I can do this. We can be doing that. So I thank you so very much for your time. And hopefully we see each other again on another episode of Inflow. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope this episode left you feeling inspired and ready to get inflows of cash, inflows of light, and inflows of faith in your life. I welcome your reviews on iTunes. Please leave me a review and help me create an amazing community of women in flow. Thank you, as always, for sharing your voice by going to michellebosch.com and joining the conversation about this show. And while you're there, grab a copy of my 10 Commandments to Living a Life in Flow. You can also follow me on Facebook at Michelle Bosch and on Instagram at Michelle Bosch Official. Thank you very much, and until the next one.